Good morning, everyone. Aloha kakahiaka, and welcome to Living in Hawaii. I am Misty Padilla, born and raised here on Hawaii Island in Kailua Kona. And I also have with me our special guests, Linda and Mara. Mara also from Hawaii Island and Linda from Oahu. Ladies, if you can just take a minute to go ahead and introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself and where you're from, and anything else you would like for the world to know. We'll start with you, Linda.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Linda here on the island of Oahu, and today's topic, private schools and charter schools. So I do have 26 years of experience here in the private school on Oahu. And before that, another 7 years on the mainland in private schools. So I believe I can speak to you all about enrollment and admissions and everything and why private school versus a public school.
That is so important. Thank you so much for sharing. How about you, Mara?
Hi, I'm Mara from Big Island, born and raised in Kona, product of some private schools as well as public schools, and now a mom of two boys that go to some public schools. And I know that our focus is on private and charter schools today, but I think it's important to tie into and compare and contrast with the regular public school system. So anyway, just here to share what I have experienced.
Very good. So yes, for those of you joining us, as you know, we are going to be talking about our school system, both public, private, charter school, just to give you an idea on what to expect as we do live on an island, So again, we always have limited resources, but we make the best off of what we have. So those of you joining us again, welcome. Aloha kakahiaka. Livinginhawaii.com is a trusted resource, and we would love to be a part of your decision making should you choose to relocate to Hawaii Island, or again, just to be your wealth of knowledge. We just kindly ask that you tune into livinginhawaii.com. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any other further questions. Let's go ahead and take it away. I'm going to start with you, Mara, since we're on Hawaii Island. Just a little bit on my end. Yes, I am a mom of 10. I have a big blended family of 10 children. And yes, I do have experience in both public school as well as private. I have not dabbled into the charter side, so I'm going to learn a lot from you ladies. Mara, go ahead and share with us your experience. Let's start off with our public school system, and then we'll navigate slowly into the private and charter area, please.
Sure. So both of my kids have come up through the public school system. We have kept them in the regular public schools for our district, and that's a combination for us of not just academics, but also just convenience. It's nice to be able to just have bus systems for them, and also know that the big schools all serve lunches and that kind of thing. So when we look at the whole picture, because you're not just looking at the academics, you have to look at how this affects your family and what works for you folks. And so for us, it has just worked out to keep the kids in the public school system. And I can say, I don't know if we're saying names of individual schools here. What I can say is that the help that my kids have needed academically, they have gotten at the regular public schools. And so when people say bad things about them, I just don't know where that comes from. And I'm sure everyone has their own experiences, but what I can say is that the public school that my kids have attended has been very, very good at providing all the resources that we need, and just really focusing on trying to help the kids learn and thrive, and looking at the whole picture, not just looking at academics, but also looking at their social and emotional well-being and providing for those needs as well. So that's it in a nutshell.
No, and you're very right. Without having to pinpoint any specifics or draw any negativity, we're speaking truth here. These are our life experiences that we've personally experienced, and yes, every family dynamic and situation is going to be different. So take it for what it is, as the knowledge that we are sharing here is, this is our personal experience, not to take away from any other experience that anyone else has. And yes, being on Hawaii Island and in Kona, again, we have very limited schools here. At one point, we only had one high school on our side of the island, and look how much we've tremendously grown, which we'll navigate into that area. And yes, so for my family and my children, I did go to public school growing up from kindergarten all the way through 6th grade. And then I was fortunate enough to go to Kamehameha from 7th grade and beyond. And I had no problems in the public school system. My parents never had any problems in the public school system. And that was for myself growing up. And then now with my children, they did go to private preschool, but then I did put them through the public school system from kindergarten all the way through high school. Only my daughter went to Kamehameha from the 9th grade. So I've had wonderful experience. And like you, Mara, said, is if there's any negative that comes from these school systems, it's really case by case for families, right? Would you agree with me there? Is it just really depends on what your family dynamics are and what your family needs are. And if the school is providing what you need for your child, then by all means, that's what you base your judgment on, right?
Right.
Linda, would you agree with what Mara and I have just shared? What can you share with us with all of your decades of experience in the public school system for Oahu?
Well, I was in the private school system on Oahu. So, yeah, everyone that wants a private school education is actually looking for something that the public schools can't offer. For instance, a religious education. So if they want a Christian education, then they would obviously look at Christian schools. If they want a more elevated experience as far as academically, frankly, networking, you would go to your bigger, well-known private schools here, that presidents have graduated from and things like that. So the private schools here on Oahu, if maybe you're coming from the mainland and you had this particular type of program that your student had on the mainland, like International Baccalaureate or Montessori or whatever, we have those types of schools here on Oahu that will be a good fit for your family. The cost is a lot, so you have to be able to afford that. But if you really want a particular type of education for your student, private schools are the way to go. And charter schools, there are a lot of charter schools here too, focus specifically on technology or Hawaiian language immersion or sciences. And so those are part of the public school. So you won't have to pay extra for that. But that I can't speak to because I have no experience with the charter schools. But for private schools, their admissions, everything is a little different. So maybe I can go into that shortly right now. Okay. So yeah, for a lot of people who come from the mainland think they just have to apply and then get into private schools. But the private schools here on Oahu are almost 1 year out. So if you're looking for 2026, admissions is already open. They're already started. They've already started interviewing students. And some of the bigger schools close their admissions process by December. So for the following year. So you always have to be ahead of the game. Some schools have rolling admissions, so you can always apply and then possibly get in semester time or the following year. But the bigger schools have a really strict deadline. So check into those if you want to apply your student to those schools. A good resource is HAIS.org, which is Hawaii Association of Independent Schools. All the schools that are accredited are part of the HAIS. And so that's another thing you want to look at when you're going to apply for private schools, to see if they're accredited. That means they've gone through different standards for everything from academics to teachers to finances to board governance, curriculum. And so look for the seal that that says that they're accredited. And a lot of that, then you start interviewing enrollment. They'll let you know whether you're in or not about springtime, sort of like a college admissions season. So always think ahead is my advice to you if you're thinking of private schools for your students here on the islands.
Very, very true. Always being able to manage expectations and plan ahead. And again, every school has their own deadlines. Just because one accounts for this period, doesn't mean that all the others are on the same enrollment period, I should say.
Correct.
So yes, definitely do your due diligence in researching where you'd like to be, and being able to meet all those deadlines, because they have hard stops. Once you pass those deadlines, there's usually no grace there, unless of course people, right? There is no grace in extending or getting through admissions that way. And then understand the criteria. There's all these prerequisites that you may need for private. Again, just do your due diligence. Would you agree with me there, Mara, for Hawaii Island as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And my kids did go to a private preschool as well. And you'd think, oh, it's just preschool, but there are definitely criteria. And so you just take all those informational whatever they give you and you read them thoroughly, and you make sure that you understand them, and you make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's every step of the way. And they like that.
Sure.
Take the time to really, look through everything, read through everything carefully, and your kid is, I don't want to say assured a spot, but if your application is one of the few complete ones, then that makes it more likely for sure.
Certainly. And for future, just based on experience, is yes, have your important documents in order, from birth certificates to social security to your identification. I mean, all the 9 yards, because again, in Hawaii, it's different. Everyone has to understand we do not function like the mainland. It takes time, like a long time, to process for things. So if you need to get your original birth certificate, your original social security, have those things readily available, so that when that time comes, all you got to do is submit, as opposed to having to request for these documents, waiting weeks for it. And then again, the clock just keeps ticking and time keeps passing. So have all your important documents ready. I've learned that all the years for all the kids. I store everything on my drive. You need a birth certificate, a passport, like everything is in a one-stop shop, because we need that throughout the course of our life. So that's a super important tip I'd like to share with everyone. I want to talk about, Mar, if you can also enhance for Hawaii Island. I know Linda had shared with us on Oahu. Yes, for private schools, you definitely expect to pay the prettier penny, of course, for cost. And again, we're limited with options on Hawaii Island compared to Oahu. So yes, take that extra moment to do things in advance, and manage your expectations so that you can get things in on a timely manner. Mara, let's talk about, I know we've touched on private and public and also charter. Can we talk about like the bus system in our public schools? Because I know that's really, really huge for parents. Shifting gears to the public school system, for those that are looking into the system, it again takes time. You have to go according to your location. So Mara, can you touch on that area where schools were sectioned off by subdivision, depending on where you live, that's where your child needs to attend school? If you can go ahead and share that.
Sure. So if you're not sure which school your child should be attending or which district you're in, just call one of them and they'll point you in the right direction. There also is a map on the DOE, Hawaii State Department of Education website, and I'm sorry I don't have the address off the top of my head, but I know you can Google it. And if you find actually has the maps available, and if you type in an address, it'll tell you which school your child should be attending. And then it also gives you contact information for that particular school. There are buses for all of the public school systems. I believe that's actually a requirement that they have to provide transportation to and from school. It is another one of those things that you want to apply early for. It is somewhat limited. They don't have the resources to just add a whole bunch more buses if necessary. And so apply early. There is a small fee for it. You apply quarterly. It's not a year-long process, at least not at the school that my son attends. You can pay for just a few bus rides, or you can pay for the whole, quarter unlimited. And then you just have to make sure that your child is at the bus stop on time. I don't know about other islands. I will say that on Hawaii Island, especially in Kona, we live on hills. And you think, what does that have to do with anything? Well, the hills are steep enough that the buses can't always navigate them. And so just because there is bus service for your child and to get them to and from school, that doesn't mean that the bus system is going to come to your front door or anywhere near that. So always consider that. We've chosen, for instance, once my son gets older, he'll probably ride the bus. But for now, because we're on a hill, the bus is still about a half mile from our house, the nearest bus stop. And so, and it's on a hill. So we choose not to have him walk up and down the hill by himself every day. So just all these little things to think about. And, I think the best thing is apply early, ask questions, talk to the neighbors and see, hey, where does the bus stop around here? And what time does it come? Because that's the other thing is that some of the buses come before 7 a.m., So you just have to make sure that you're prepared for that and that your family is willing and able to accommodate that. For us, it's worked out to just hop in the car and drive him to school every day. So.
And that's what I do is I'm like the chauffeur, yes, you take the kids at one point, we would go to 3 different schools in that school year. So yes, it gets a little chaotic, but again, with ample timing and planning, you just make it work. On Hawaii Island, we have just one road that goes around the entire island. So if anything shuts down, like you have to pivot, everybody's on the same road. And it just takes a lot of patience and driving with aloha, right?
Absolutely.
Linda, is that the same for Oahu? Again, you guys have so much more people and schools and options to choose from. But are you folks restricted for attending schools outside of your district?
You can always do a district exemption as far as public schools are concerned, but you are not necessarily guaranteed to be able to go there. You have to have a reason. And, going back to the buses, yes, public schools are the only ones that provide bus service here on Oahu, except for Kamehameha schools, unless, you're a student there. And you will be getting up at the crack of dawn to be able to go to Kamehameha schools, especially from the west side, Waianae. But they do have bus service, but all of the private schools do not that I know of. Maybe Assets, which is a special education school here, a private school here, but I doubt it. So pretty sure just Kamehameha is offering bus service. Everyone else has to carpool, drive hour from west side to Punahou or Iolani, something in town. It's a long drive commute, but that's one of the, advantages, at least for the families that choose private schools, that they just have to realize it might take us an hour to get to school, but that's what we're willing to do in order for our students to attend a private school. So
for sure, lots and lots of options, from when it comes to public, private, charter, bus system, meal systems, education. Ladies, let's go ahead and talk about these options, such as I know there's migrant opportunities when it comes to public school that offer after school studies and tutoring, all these things. Like there's just so much options that are out there. Mara, do you mind talking a little bit about those options when it comes to extra tutoring that is available and then even after school programs in our public schools?
Sure. So my experience has been that the public schools always have to offer some kind of after school care for those parents that can't pick their kids up right when the school bell rings and right when school gets out. Now, there's a caveat there. Those programs are not usually run by the school itself, but they partner with another community agency. And that community agency, it depends. Some of them are willing to just add more staff and more resources as needed. And others have a hard cutoff and say, we're taking this many kids and that's it. The rest of you, sorry. And so again, comes down to when you are figuring out when you move to a new location and you're figuring out which school to enroll your child in, you just have to ask those questions. And you have to know that, okay, school starts on August 5th. They're going to release the applications for after school care on August 1st. You better get it in on August 1st by 8:30 in the morning if they release it at 8 o'clock. Otherwise, it's pretty much not going to happen for you. So again, just being prepared and just really making sure you fill out all the applications and stay on top of things is what's going to assure your child a spot. As far as the after school programs that have been available, they've had ones that are run by the Boys and Girls Club of America. They've had ones that are the school has had some funding to do some after school programs of their own. They're usually more curriculum based. And then La'iopua 2020 is another program that we have here in Kona. And they have kind of a STEM/cultural education program that they provide for the students. And they actually do come to the facilities. So there's no busing to another facility. When I say Boys and Girls Club, they have Boys and Girls Club staff that shows up at the school, and they have a designated spot on campus for their students after school.
So
yeah,
true.
Definitely stay on top of things and, always try and apply early. Be that nag, calling the school during the summer, like, hey, is that application available? Or what's the after school program going to be like next year? Hey, I know that we just got out of school and we've got a couple months of summer, but I need to know. And ask, when is the application going to be available? When can I fill out that application and turn it in? And really set reminders on your calendar and prioritize that,
So true. That is so important because, again, you literally have hundreds and thousands of families, that are all trying to get into the same program at the same time because families are all working and not everyone has, the opportunity to be able to take their children to school and pick them up and take them to sports and extracurricular activities. So you do need to definitely manage your expectations and prioritize. That is a key word, is prioritize and getting your registrations in early, on time, follow up, be that nag, just like Mara said. There's nothing wrong with being consistent, and you have to be. Things get lost in the system. We've all experienced it, is we can do everything on our end, but once it goes through the system, oh, I'm sorry, your application wasn't received, and you're like, oh my gosh, keep everything documented, phone, text, emails, just always have your backup. And I think that's just super important for us here. Linda, would you agree the same process for Oahu?
Well, as far as private schools are concerned, yes, most of them have after school care and before school care, which of course is an additional cost. And then when you get into your upper elementary, junior high, high school, there are after school sports activities and things like that. When you apply for the regular school year, at that time, you'll be able to say, yes, I need before school care or after school care. And you'll just sign up at that time.
Very good. Very good. And something super important, that I would like to touch on, and I'm sure you folks would agree with me, is, again, whether you're in public, private, or charter school, you are dealing with different culture and lifestyle of children and families. And also, you're going to experience the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I just feel that, we as parents, we definitely need to prepare our children and, of course, teach our children, because they need to be able to navigate through the normal world. But also, how do I say this and being very light, is, being able to adjust to those who have special needs, and those that may not have normal lifestyles that others have, is being able to teach our children, to be kind, but yet also be firm, because we live in a world of bullies. And, for us having to choose where to go and place our children for school, we want to make sure that safety, to me, that is first and foremost, is my child going to be safe wherever I choose and make a decision to place my child? Is my child going to be safe? And then, of course, what kind of curriculum is being taught? They're going to be taking care of my kids all day. What are you teaching my children? These are all the factors that we need to take a look at, but of course, instill in our children, that you have to be kind. There's so much bullying out there, and I'm touching on this because we experience this. We see children, and you look at the way the world has pivoted and shifted, is there's just so much out there. So if we as adults, can instill that into the children, it just makes our world and our schools a better place. Ladies, would you agree with me there? Mara, feel free to enhance anything there in that area.
Oh, absolutely. No matter what, no matter where you send your kids to school, you are their first teacher. And so we just need to keep that in mind that, we start teaching our children how to behave and how to interact with others and how to learn way before they go to school, or at least we should be, in my opinion. And so, you build that foundation long before they start school. And then, of course, you do look for a school that is in alignment with your values and your morals. I know that we were supposed to be talking more about private schools and charter schools, but we can't help but talk about the public schools too. And talking about things, I realized that it's a tough job for them, and it's not perfect, of course, because they do deal with all different types of cultures and traditions. But that's the beauty of it too,
Right.
is that your child is exposed to all these different factors. And so they're not, I can say, as someone who went to private school until 5th grade and then was thrown into the public school system in 6th grade, it was life-changing. It was eye-opening. It was shocking, because there were so many variables that we just didn't have when we were in private school. And so it was shocking at first, but I'm so grateful for it, because it also gave me a better perspective on real life and the real world, because you do have to deal with all kinds of people from all walks of life and different belief systems, different ways of communicating, all the things. So yes, every school has something that it offers. I really think that the public schools are great about, and it's just inherent in nature. It's not something that they really are trying to promote, but just because they take everyone from everywhere, your kids really do get exposed to all kinds of different cultures and traditions. And maybe that's not something that you can give them a grade for, but I think that's very, very valuable in the long run for them to learn, just to deal with others and to be accepting of others at all times.
Perfectly spoken. I completely agree with that. Anything you would also like to share on top of what we've talked about, Linda?
No, I think you need to do your due diligence as far as, what school is going to fit your family. And so private schools are a really good option. Just take a look at each of them, what their mission statements say, what their purpose is. And you might be able to send your child to a private school because they align more with what your values and morals are as a family.
Perfectly spoken. That covered kind of everything in a nutshell. Anything we may have missed, we can always discuss that in another show. It just gives us more to talk about. On all these topics, there's just always so much to discuss and share at any given time. For those of you tuning into livinginhawaii.com, feel free to reach out to us. And if there's any specific topic that you would like to hear and have us address, share it with us. We would love to come and talk story with each and every one of you. Ladies, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. I really, really appreciate it. You folks all have a blessed day. And thank you again for those of you tuning in to livinginhawaii.com. We would love to be your trusted local resource in all things Hawaii. Make it a great day, everyone. Aloha.
Aloha.